Okay, this time we are going to check the constraint behavior while merging the database. So by this stage, we have implemented load data, add row, clear button. So to do data merge, user will first load the data after selecting the radio buttons. Then they will enter data on these text boxes. After that, they will click this button. So what happens? It creates a new data table and adds a row. That means it piles up each row when you click this vertical button here. So user will usually enter data here, then they will get one row get added to a data table. Then they will enter a second data and they will click this button. The second row get added. So like this, we are building a data table on the fly, which is kept in memory until user clicks the add table. So let's say user added 5 rows by entering the data here and clicking the button 5 times. So our in-memory table, data table, will have 5 rows now. So if they click add table, in the code what we are doing, we are trying to merge the in-memory data table with the one already got loaded in this data grid view. So here we are talking about 2 data table. Data table 1, which get loaded when the load button is clicked. So the data table is part of data set. Then we are forming a new data table by entering the data here and by repeatedly clicking this button. So a new data table is built. We will call that as a second data table. So when we click add table, this newly formed in-memory data table, we are trying to merge with the data table which is loaded on the click of load data. And by doing this action, we are also going to examine how the data table merge behaves when there is no constraint, when there is a unique constraint, and when there is a primary key constraint. So before we move, we will look into the code that is written for the button handler for this one and add a table. So here if you see, we are adding, we're building the in-memory data table. So here is a list box. For the list box content, I am adding a title ID and just a description, just to know what is the content of the in-memory data table. So for example, if we added 4 data, so to quickly know what is there in the in-memory table, this list content will help. After populating the list content, we are actually forming a data row from the DT title. If you go here, we declare DT title separately. This is the title data set. In the title data set, we are running this query, and through adapter fill method we are already filling a data table. So the data table is a part of the data set and the name of the data table is title. This is one table and the table is part of this title data set. Then we are having one more table that we declare explicitly here as a global variable. So this DT title we are filling here. So that DT title we are referring here. When user clicks this button, we are taking that global variable DT, the global object DT title, and we are asking to get a new row on that data table. So now we have a new row. Then we are populating that new row with data entered by the user. Then through rows collection, we are adding this new row. That's all happens. So user usually fills these 3 title text, and they click and they click this button. Then a new row get added to the DataTable. So when a new row is added, it is visually seen by the user through the text box. It's just a helper that displays what are all the row added to the DataTable. Right. Then this add DataTable. Here we are going to do a merge. So I kept that in the try catch black. First, what I am saying, I'm saying title data set merge DT title. So because DT title we are filling dynamically, it will hold the number of rows based on how many times they entered the data and clicked this button. So if it is 4 times, then there will be 4 number of rows in the data title. So from title data set, we are merging the DT title. Then we are saying title data set dot table, then accept changes. So title data set merge DT title. Here this in-memory table will go and merge with the data table, and we know that this data set already has a data table called titles, and this DT title table will go and merge with that table. Before that, if you see here in the load handler, I already added the code for DT title. If you see in the adapter fill method, we are forming the first data table and we are naming that as title. Here we are building the new data table and we are purposefully making the name as title for this one also. Right. Then we are matching the columns here. Title ID, which is equivalent to the same title ID here. Then second column also same. Third column also same. Type. Title ID, title, type, title ID, title, type. So the second data table that we are forming on the fly is exactly mapping to the schema structure and schema structure of the data table, which is part of the data set. Here we are specifying the type as well, and we are taking the type from the existing data set. If you see, I'm forming the new table here, so I am matching the new data table's data type with the data table which is already in the data set. DT title is the data table, then I'm using the columns collection, then I'm adding a new column. The first parameter is the column name. The second parameter is the tricky part, which is type. This type, I'm taking it from the existing data table, which is part of the data set. Here I'm getting the data table titles, then I'm accessing the column collection. Then I'm picking a specific column by specifying the column name, title ID. Then using the property data type, I'm retrieving the data type which is part of the title dataset data table called titles. Then I am supplying it to the newly formed data table. So by this way, both the data table match with the column name, match with the data type, and this will allow the merge that we are doing here. So once the merge happened, what I'm saying, I'm clearing the title, DT title rows.clear. Why? Because the merge happened by this call here. So once the merge is happened, I don't want anything in the in-memory data table. So we are clearing it. After that, we are clearing the text box entries also. We don't want that to. Then we are clearing the helper list box. All right. So to explain it quickly, in this button handler, I'm creating a new data row and adding it to the in-memory data table. Then when add table button is clicked, actually I'm performing the merge. So here 2 tables are involved. One table that we are forming here, we are keep on adding the rows here. Then when add table is clicked, the table we are trying to merge with the data table, which is part of the title data set. This title data set is filled by the adapter fill method. After we do the accept changes, we are refreshing the data grid view, so that will show the result of this merge activity. Now we will test how this merge behaves when data is loaded without any key, with primary key and with unique key. All right, let's go ahead and explain, examine. Before that, we will build this, and if there is any error, we will resolve it. Okay, let me go ahead and run this sample. First, we will load the data without any constraint, and this time we will add 3 entries. What I am saying, I'm adding TC 100. Type is category 01. New book 01. So I'm clicking this button. So it adds your row here in the list box. This tells that we have 1 row in the in-memory table. Now I'll go ahead and add 1 more row. I'll just put second book or third book. Then I'll add that. So there is 1 more row here. Then I'll add 1 duplicate row also, TC 47. Since there is no constraint here, we can add anything we want freely. Now data table has 3 rows, and when I click add table, all this data table will get merged. So this data table, we are filling it on the fly, and this data table is in-memory created data table, and we are going to merge this with the one which is already bound to the data grid view. Okay, now let me click the add table, and this will call the merge of the data set, and it will try to merge this new data table with the one with the data table already holding. So if you see, there are 3 rows. This is the new table that we are merging, which get added to the data table, which is already part of the data set. And if you see, there is a violation here. Since we don't ask for any constraint, it allowed the new row. Now what we will do, we will clear this, and this time we will add, we'll load the data with unique key. Then we will start adding the rows here. DC 100, category 01, book 01. Let me build the data table. 101, category, same category, second book, add. This time let me put a duplicate, TC 4447. So before that, first let me do a successful addition. That's all. Now let me add the table. Let's see that the data get added. I'll clear and we'll load again. This time we'll add a duplicate entries. TC 100 category 01 book-01 TC. So now I'm adding a duplicate row. Category will change it. Book I will put 02. Then I'll add here. If you look at the in-memory table, this one is allowed, but this one is not allowed because we loaded the data with the unique key, and when we try to merge, the merge won't happen because it already exists here. The merge here tries to form a new row. So TC100 doesn't exist here, so it forms a new row during the merge, right? And remember, the database constraint is unique. So it looks at the second entry, and title ID column is TC47, and here TC47 already exists. Since the database constraint is unique, adding a new row fails and we will get an error. So this time it shows where the conflict occurs. Fail to enable constraint. Why? Because when merge happens, it merges the columns of data, rows of data. Then it tries to enable the constraint. So when it tries to enable the constraint, it sees a violation between the newly added row TC47 with the existing TC47, which is part of the adapter field data table. Right, I'm clicking OK now. So I'm doing the clear. Now let's do the same thing with the primary key. Here you will see a difference. It will not behave the same way how unique key constraint behaved. Okay, let me load the data. I'll put TC 100 category 01 description book 01. So I'm adding that to the data table. Then I'm adding the second one, category 02, category 03, book 03, adding it to the data table. Then I'm adding TC 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. This time I'm forming a duplicate by TC47, category 03, book I'm keeping it as 04. I'll add one more, PS43 I'll add. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. Category 03, book 05. Okay, now our in-memory table contains 4 rows. One is TC100 and another one is TC102. So when merge happens, 2 new rows get formed because because it is not conflicting with any of the title ID row. So 2 new rows get formed, and that will get added to the existing data table. But when TC7777 comes into picture, and since we loaded the data as a primary key, this time it won't show any constraint violation, but it tries to map this row with this TC77 and it tries to merge. What happens? It takes books 04 and updates this title with the new one. Then category also get updated. So that means it changes the existing row and applies the new change. Same happens for PC43. Let's see what happens. I'm clicking add table. Let me highlight these two and see what happens. Add table. If you see, 2 new rows get added. For PS33, the data get changed, and for TC4447 the data got changed. So that's the difference between a unique and a primary key on the data table. So you will actually see the difference when data merge happens, right? So unique key actually gave you a complaint when there is a conflict, but primary key doesn't give you any complaint, but it actually tries to merge the data based on the conflicting keys, conflicting column. So in this case, since TC47 is conflicted with the new data table entry, new data table row, so it took the title from the new data table row and updates the existing one. Same happened for the type also. So that's all on this video. Bye.